Obviously, we got Southern Illinois coming in town, and Coach Lennon's got his guys playing very well. They're 3-1 right now in the conference, and we're glad to be back here at Stanbaugh Stadium. We've had 2 difficult road games, and it'd be good to be back here in front of our home crowd. And you know, we expect our crowd obviously to show up and give us support. You know, we're in a situation now where we're 4-2, and we need a home field advantage. We've been to some places here recently that have a home field advantage, and we want to see that take place here at our place. And this is a big football game for our football team, and we know it. They're a team that when I came into the league, they were 2-time champs, and Coach Lennon's got those guys playing again, and you know, I've seen them drastically improve when you look back from this year to last year.
Coach, can you, not to go back to last game, but can you describe the feeling after that game, and I mean, what that feel, just can you describe it?
Well, you know, it's losing's always difficult, you know, and I think sometimes in the manner that it takes place can make it, you know, obviously more difficult than others. And you know, I'm the type of person that I look in the mirror first, you know, and I struggle with losing, you know, and I've had some difficult losses here, you know, and some close games that have been all different kinds of ways, and it's difficult, it's stressful, it's hard, you don't sleep, you know, but the next day you got to pick yourself back up because you got to pick your team up. And you know, I told our ball team on Monday, I said, hey, what's reality? Reality is we're 4-2. You know, is that ideally what we want to be? No. Should we be better than 4-2? Yes. But reality is that's what we are. And we've got a good football team coming in here to town. And in all these games, you know, you can even go back to North Dakota State early in that midway through that second quarter, but there's always 4 or 5 plays, you know, when you're playing good teams. And that's the same way as it was when we were at South Carolina in the SEC. Same way in the Big Ten when you're playing the upper echelon teams. There's 4 or 5 plays. The thing is you don't know as coach or player which 4 or 5 are going to make the difference. So then as a coach, once you've watched the film on Sunday, you think about those 4 or 5 plays, and they just keep replaying in your mind about what you would do different, you know. And that's the, I guess you would say, agony of losing a game, you know. It's really hard when you feel like you're somewhat in control of the game for a portion of the game, and then all of a sudden you end up on the wrong side of the win-loss column, you know. So those are things that obviously we had to deal with. The easiest thing, or I guess what makes me feel better is when I see our team come back and respond with good attitudes. I don't sense any bickering or complaining amongst players. We came out yesterday and had a really good practice, and I seen some enthusiasm. When we watched film together, we pointed a few things out. We pointed a few guys out and said, hey, this needs to be better right here. We know that you're better than that, and we expect that. So, you know, we kind of had a reality check, you know. At the same time, it wasn't a bashing, you know. It was just a reality check that, hey, you need to do better here in this situation, and we probably have some different outcomes, you know. And there's a fine line that you have to walk too, because if you do that and you bash them and berate them and you tank them, then you run a risk of losing your football team. So what's encouraging is after we had a reality check and we visited, come back on Monday and have a practice, and kids are flying around and kids are having fun. You know, we need to get back to having fun again. This is a game that's supposed to be fun. And as coaches, we have to continue to remember that. Is, you know, when things don't go your way, sometimes you get a little bit anxious and excited, and I'm as guilty as anybody. At the same time, though, you better love them up and hug them and make them understand that you genuinely care about them.
Players talking about back to maybe some fundamentals, you know, working on their techniques.
And I think that's something that as coaches, you know, when you sit in there on Sunday after you watch the film, you critique it, you grade it, you say, hey, you know, when you talk about fundamentals, there's some basics. And the basics are, well, pad level, footwork, eyes, etc. Well, you know, if you're not completely confident or confused, sometimes you'll be thinking too much about your assignment because you're not as maybe have a better understanding that it may make you play slow, you know, or you might not be as effective as executing what we're asking you to do because of your insecurity, you know. So as coaches, we say, hey, this is glaring. This is a glaring problem. We need to change it. We're not getting it. So we need to simplify. And if we simplify some things, then you're completely confident. You don't think about when you go to grab a doorknob. I mean, that's something that you're confident in. Riding a bicycle, you know, you may not have ridden a bicycle in 6 months, but you can go jump back on a bike and ride it because it's something that you have confidence in doing. So keep it simple so you can play like you're capable of. And that's something that we addressed as a staff, and we made some subtle changes on some things without giving away what we're doing, but we made some changes, some personnel changes, and we expect to go out and play faster and play more assignment sound.
I only saw one depth chart change as a wide receiver, but I think Trevor said Jamarius is going to get it.
We're going to start Boat right there at nickel. And, you know, he's a guy that has played here before in the past, played as a freshman, had a knee injury, kind of had some bad luck with that, but all signs of that move right now look very good. He was very good yesterday in practice. He's got some natural instincts that I think are a big part of the game too. You know, certain guys have natural instincts when they're in space because of just who they are and their experiences they've had. And he looked a lot more comfortable out there, and I think that's going to be a good move.
Any other changes?
We're going to shake up the defensive line. I think we've taken the approach though that, you know, instead of just saying we're going to do it going into a Monday, we're going to kind of let guys practice a little bit and see who's playing the best and who's practicing the best, and make some changes there. Or if, you know, the same guys continue, you know, they work hard and do well in practice and are executing what we ask them to do, then we'll stay with that group. But and I think the other thing is we got to probably get a little bit more of a running back rotation going. You know, Cook had the hot hand early, and when a guy has a hot hand, sometimes you like to leave him in there. But you know, from the year before, we realized that that's not beneficial down the line. So we got to get those other guys in there, and we're going to make a conscious effort to do that early in the game, so Cook can be fresher late in the game.
Eric, following the win on a high, are you guys a better football team now than you were when you beat Pitt?
Are we a better team? Oh, good question. You know, I don't know if I can assess that. I would say, you know, we're doing some, obviously after the Pitt game, I think that can potentially be distorted because, you know, I think at the time we played Pitt, you know, they probably weren't playing necessarily at a high level. You know, they were in their first game with a new coaching staff and probably weren't executing on all cylinders. So I think, you know, the Pitt game, as good as the win was, I think there can be some negatives that follow up with a big win like that. Now all of a sudden, not that our expectations ever change, but there's expectations all over that we're back, you know, and obviously we found out here the last 2 weeks that we still have some things we need to clean up.
From a defensive standpoint, the last 3 games they've run trick plays, and they've been successful. Have you spent extra time on that, or how do you?
Well, we know it's coming. You know, we always have some trick plays too, you know, and you know, I think in the North Dakota State game, the trick play was surprising because of their personality of their football team. That sent a message to me, though, that when they ran the trick play there on the second series, that they knew they were in for a big game, and they knew they had to pull something out. Whereas, you know, when your corners are aggressive, which obviously Dale Peterman and Julius Childs are aggressive. Those guys make a lot of tackles. They're physical. Is they've got to just be a little bit more disciplined with their eyes at times, and then sometimes when you have a safety or that's supposed to be helping them, he can't bite on the fake either. You know, so it's not just one thing. It's a combination of things based on what coverage we have.
Would you like to see them just maul somebody if you get beat that bad and just take the 15 yards?
That wouldn't be bad. You know, but you know, we're getting back into position there. You just like to, you know, we're taking that hand swipe. We just need a little bit of a stronger hand swipe when we try to get that ball out. But you know, what is it? That's 2 touchdowns. It's not the difference in the game, really. There's a momentum part of it that's involved, but at the end of the day, that's not just one thing. That's one of the 4 or 5 plays, you know. And so, you know, we got to get back to just eliminating those 4 or 5 plays. You know, you're asked to play for 5 or 6 seconds.
Are your corners making too many tackles? I mean, Peterman's the 3rd leading tackler and Childs is the 5th leading tackler.
I like that they make tackles, except for when they trick play us.
Well, I mean, no, from a defensive standpoint, though, is that just
No.
because teams are throwing the ball?
Well, yeah, I think so. You know, I mean, you know, on 1st and 10, we're getting some quick game out there, and you know, they're just popping the ball out there, and those guys got to make some tackles. But you know, and that's some of that's based on what coverages you're playing too. You know, sometimes you have them in a run support position with a cover 2 or a 2 clam. You know, so those are different things that those guys are asked to be run support players. You know, and it's based on what type of you know, scheme you're playing against. But I'm glad that we got guys that can come up and tackle, because we've been in that situation before that we've struggled at doing that.
Coach, go ahead.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the things that impress you about Southern Illinois, both offense and defense, and how you
Well,
to
offensively,
counter those things?
yeah, offensively, you know, they like to jump around as far as formations. They like to do a bunch of shifts and motions. They run some of that jet sweep, and they try to sometimes get your eyes focused on the jet sweep, and then all they're running is a power play off tackle. So there's some similarities into some of the things that we do on offense. You know, they're trying to mess with your eyes and slow down your linebacker play by shifting and doing gaps. And I think you have to simplify some things so that way you can just line up and play a little bit. At the same time, on defense, you know, they have a great tight end. I mean, he's a threat. He's a guy that I think is a mismatch, similar to Wilshaw. His name's Pruitt. He's a kid last year that impressed me. He was only a freshman last year, and he's a guy that I said, well, that guy's going to be a really good football player, and he's shown that. And you know, they got 2 backs back there that are kind of by committee guys that like to pound on you and lay on you a little bit there. And then, you know, you look at their defense, I think the first thing that jumps off the film on you is how hard they play. You know, they play very hard. They are very active. They like to run a bunch of movements and stunts. And probably the most glaring thing is I think they're like 27% on 3rd down, you know, opponents are. So they're doing a great job on 3rd down of getting people off the field. Last 2 games they've blocked a punt in each game. And you know, when you block a punt in a game, your chances of winning that game go up drastically. So they'll have our punt team's attention.
Coach, when you've talked about looking in the mirror, obviously, everybody. As you personally, when you kind of take that look and reflection back, what do you think is the biggest change you want to make with what you do to affect this team?
I think as a head coach, you know, what happens is sometimes you want to be involved in every little specific thing, and sometimes you can maybe spread yourself a little bit too thin. But I think my responsibility is, first of all, leadership, and I think leadership goes obviously to the staff, and I think to the players. I think I'm also responsibility for team chemistry, you know, and these kids know that we care about them. They know we love them, and you know, they know we take these losses hard. But you know, that's my job is to make sure our team chemistry is good, and I try to really pay attention to that a lot, and focus on that, you know, and I feel like that's a big part of what I have to do. You know, I think at the same time, you know, you got to pay attention to discipline, you know, at all times, and, you know, I mean, Northern Iowa game, we had to sit a guy down and not start him and not play him because he was 5 minutes late for a meeting. You know, I don't think you can ever let that waver. If a guy misses a class, you know, he needs to do 6 a.m. You know, you can't let those type of things slide. You got to keep your locker room clean. You know, you need to be out there at practice on time and do what you're supposed to do. And I think my job is to make sure that our football players are accountable as a team. You know, when we sit in there and watch special teams and we see that one guy misses his block on kickoff return, if that guy makes the block, Stubbs runs for probably a touchdown. On punt return, you know, if you two guys just do what you're supposed to do as far as have inside leverage and wall the guy to the sideline, now Stubbs has an opportunity, who's a dynamic player, to field the ball and is probably going to make the long snapper miss, and then he's going to be out the gate. You know, I have to point that out. I have to show that in the meeting, and I have to have balance on how I do it without, you know, completely tanking the guy, but at the same time getting a message across that, hey, you know, you got to be accountable to a lot more people than just yourself. What about Andre Stubbs back there? You know, what about the other guys on this football team? What about the seniors on this football team? What about this community? What about this university? I mean, so that's another big part of my job is making sure people are accountable for how they play.
Is that what you feel like you want to improve on? Is
I want
holding
to,
people more accountable?
I've always kind of been doing that all along. I think our players need to realize that, you know, a 5-yard penalty on a kickoff is not just 5 yards. You know, you go from having a team pinned inside the 20, okay, and all the momentum in the football game, to re-kicking, and now they take the ball back to midfield. You know, because your kickoff team now has had to run down twice. Not that that's a big deal, but you got to get out of that mentality that, oh, it's just 5 yards. Well, that's a big part of what we're trying to do. And, you know, you got to have respect for all these teams in this conference and who you play. There's a lot of teams in our conference that the games are going to come down to those 4 or 5 plays. And, you know, if we get beat and we're given the effort and trying to do what we coach you to do, can handle it. When you're not, it's a big deal.
That being said, is it a fair comparison to say that this conference is like the SEC at the FCS?
No, I don't think there's any doubt. You know, I mean, there's the same kind of pressure. You know, in your daily preparation as a coach. You know, I mean, you feel every game that you go into that's a pretty somewhat evenly matched game. So how are you going to have an advantage? And then where are you going to draw the line by trying to creatively scheme an advantage that your players can understand and execute? That's where the fine line is. You know, if you're evenly matched and you're trying to out-scheme someone, at what point do you start out-scheming too much and then your player can't execute? So that's that fine line that you got to be able to walk.
Some people wrote you off after the South Dakota State loss last year. Similar situation now that you're heading into Southern Illinois, that win kind of stabilized you guys. Do you see some similarities there?
I think there's, you know, that you bring that to my attention, yeah. I mean, you know, I just know that this is a big football game, you know, and I don't like to put pressure on our kids by no means, but I've made it a point to our coaching staff to understand that this is a big game. They're 3-1 in the conference, we're 1-2. And I feel like this game here could have playoff implications as far as the way the pecking order shakes out at the end of the year. This will be a game that we'll look back on and say that this helped us or it hurt us.
With what?
Last week you said you don't put all your eggs in one basket with the must-win. Is this the must-win then?
I feel like that we need to go out and play well. You know, I don't ever like to say must win, but I'll just put it this way: I'm treating it like a must win. I don't want my team to treat it like that because I don't want my guys to be tight. You know, and I think sometimes when you're tight, you might try too hard. And we kind of saw what happened at the North Dakota State game when you're all excited to be in the moment and you try a little too hard. You don't do exactly what you're coached to do, and then we have a problem.
With that said, what type of effort do you expect Saturday?
Great effort. Great effort. I expect a live crowd. This is a big game. Our community knows it's a big game. I hope they do. I hope they know we need them more than ever. And you know, we play for Youngstown at the end of the day. You know, we've said it all along, and we're 4-2. We have an opportunity to be 5-2, and I feel like they can make a difference. And we're gonna go out and play our tail off. I can assure you that.